we talk solely about maxilla or maxillary dentulous ridge. The stress bearing or the supporting structures are divided into primary as well as secondary supporting structures, right? So the primary supporting structure considered as anterolateral as well as posterolateral slopes of hard palate, right? The hard palate over here is a mainly consists of cortical bone with a thin mucosa which is closely adapted, and this mucosa is keratinized. So keratinized mucosa can well tolerate the stresses, right? Along with that, it is closely adapted, so there will be minimum tissueward movement of the denture. So when the mucosa is keratinized as well as there is minimum tissueward movement of the denture, it will provide effective support to the prosthesis. Along with that, in here you have loose connective tissue, and over here you have glandular tissue. So along with that, the loose connective tissue and the glandular tissue is going to provide what? Cushioning effect also. So whatever the forces are directed are decreased as they reach towards bone, right? Hydraulic cushioning effect. Along with that, there are secondary stress bearing areas like maxillary crest of the ridge. It is not considered as an effective area for primary support because, for example, in the cases of combination syndrome, or you call it as Kelly's syndrome, in these cases, for example, you have given maxillary denture with mandibular anterior natural teeth, right? So in these cases, the forces which are going to act in the maxillary anterior ridge are going to cause resorption of the anterior maxilla. So the anterior maxillary ridge is sometimes susceptible to resorption at a faster rate compared to your primary stress bearing areas. There are also some areas in maxilla which are to be relieved, that are your mid palatine raphe as well as incisive papilla. You have over your fovea palatina. If you have any palatal tori, that also should be relieved. And there are also some areas which are non-contributing, that is your denture border. So these denture borders are considered as a non-contributing areas. Similarly, in mandible also you have primary stress bearing area, that is your buccal shelf area. Buccal shelf area again contains cortical bone. Along with that, dense cortical bone. Along with that, it is somewhat oriented perpendicular to the occlusal forces directed, right? So buccal shelf area is almost considered perpendicular to the forces directed towards the mandible. So it is considered that it can tolerate forces in well amount than other areas. So along with that, it has tendinous attachments of buccinator muscle, which is going to create a tension effect. This tension effect is going to prevent the remodeling as well as resorptive changes. Along with that, you have your pear shaped pad. This pear shaped pad is different from retromolar pad. Pear shaped pad is a area of keratinized mucosa which is lying just behind the third molar, and it is bounded laterally by buccinator, medially by superior constrictor and your pterygomandibular raphe, and posteriorly by tendon of temporalis. So again this area can tolerate pressure in well amount and can avoid remodeling as well as resorptive changes. Thus pear-shaped pad as well as buccal shelf area are considered as the primary stress bearing area. Again the crest of the ridge over here, because of thin mucosa overlying it, not considered as a primary stress bearing area, but you can still call it as a secondary stress bearing area. Then you have some relief areas like mylohyoid ridge, or sometimes if genial tubercles are exposed, then also there are some non-contributing areas like anterior part of your mandibular ridge as well as the buccal flanges, labial flanges of your mandibular denture. So this is about the maxillary and mandibular stress bearing areas. If you guys want to go in detail about this anatomical landmarks, I have a separate video for anatomical landmarks of maxilla as well as mandible. You can check out in the playlist of subject prosthodontics. Now the one more thing which is left is the snowshoe effect. So snowshoe effect, what does snowshoe effect say? Snowshoe effect, snowshoe effect. Snowshoe said that the denture base should cover maximum possible area of the tissue. So when you are going to cover the maximal denture base area, the forces which are going to act towards the denture base or to the denture bearing tissues are going to be distributed in a wide area, right? So the forces acting in a unit area per area is going to be decreased. So the maximum coverage of the tissues should be possible, so that the forces acting in direction to the basal seat tissues are decreased per unit area. They are dissipated equally in all the directions. This is your snowshoe effect in simple terms. Now there are some relief regions as we discussed in the stress bearing area. So relief regions, you can divide these relief regions into three categories. First are the relief regions in which there is thin mucosal covering, but you cannot use them as primary stress bearing area. Secondary, again there is thin mucosal covering, but they are to be solely relieved, right? And third is your thin mucosal covering underneath there is vessel, any blood vessel or neurovascular bundle is passing through it, right? So in this case, in which there is thin mucosal covering but you cannot consider it as a primary stress bearing area, that is your crest of the ridge, right? The crest of the maxillary as well as mandibular ridge, the mucosa over that is thin, but you cannot consider it as a primary stress bearing area. In second category, again the mucosa is thick but they are to be solely relieved, that is your mid-palatine raphe. Then you have your mylohyoid ridge, you have genial tubercles, right? So these areas should be relieved solely, or you have any palatine tori. Third is your area with thin mucosal covering and underneath you have blood vessel passing, that is your incisive papilla, right? Then you have your mental foramen, right? So these are your relief regions. I hope so you guys have understood the objectives of impression making, that is regarding the support. The support mainly says that there are some areas that are soft tissues as well as hard tissues which are resistant to remodeling as well as resorptive changes of the bone, right? Along with that, there are some relief areas which are to be kept in mind, and whenever you are going to direct support, you should be aware about the impression techniques or the impression method which you are going to use while recording those tissues, right? Every case is a different, so the selection of impression material as well as the impression procedure also plays a major role in gaining support for a processes, because support is what something which is related to longevity of the processes. So right, longevity is important. Until and unless you don't have longevity of the processes, there is no sense of retention as well as stability. So to conclude with this, if you guys have any doubt, I hope you guys have understood this topic. If any doubt, then please let us know in the comment section. You can also reach us out in our Instagram page, that is Dentistry to the Point. At last, if you enjoyed the video, then please like, share and subscribe our channel. Thank you for being with us and watching our video. Have a nice day.